Hi everyone. So today we're going to be talking again about artificial intelligence, and we're going to specifically be talking about quite a famous TED talk that Sam Harris gave several years ago about the dangers of AI and where the world is going. The fact that inevitably where we're heading to is the point where artificial intelligence will become vastly more intelligent than humans, and he argues against anybody who doesn't think that's going to happen, and how horrifically dangerous that would be. And the argument's a pretty simple one to go through. We are pushing technology forward. Intelligence is just a matter of being able to process things further and further. So there's little reason to doubt that machines will become significantly more intelligent in whatever way we want to measure intelligence. At some point in the future, it doesn't really matter how far in the future it will be. There's no real way that we can stop it or will stop it. Therefore, it's going to happen. And once something becomes vastly more intelligent than us, it will start to produce its own solutions to problems without being held back by us. That's, again, fairly obvious. Why would something much more intelligent than us bother asking us for an answer that won't be as good as one it can come up with? And then it starts to think about, well, at some point the gap gets so big that, let's say, however big the gap between us and a chicken is, or us and an ant, the gap between them and us will be. And at some point, therefore, we will be, in our needs and concerns and agendas will become as irrelevant to them as the needs of chickens or ants are to us. We care about them, all things being equal, but if their needs conflict with ours win, even at the expense of a significant amount of death of the latter. That's kind of basically his argument. Now, there's a number of points to make, and obviously a lot of different thoughts and so on. People ask it, from a Jewish perspective, how apocalyptic is this? Where's God in all this, etc. Obviously, there's also from a secular perspective. I was at a conference a few years ago, an interfaith conference on artificial intelligence, meeting lots of different, very interesting people who were raising lots of ethical issues and challenges. And one question that was coming out, one question I raised to the organizers was really, what difference does it make that what we're trying to do with all this, given that ultimately, let's say, United States and China in an arms race, the Western world against the and liberal free world against the non-free world, in an arms race, and everybody needs AI to get ahead of the other one. It is inevitable that we're going to push this stuff far. The guys in Silicon Valley says, always saying, don't worry, it's 50 years in the future, and he quite rightly says that's rubbish. That first of all, we don't know how far in the future it is, but second of all, 50 years is not very far. And if you just think anybody who's in their 40s or 50s today will tell you how not long ago 50 years is, and we're that far away from the greatest cataclysmic point where humanity completely loses control of our own destiny. So what could happen as a result? And there seems to be a few possible conclusions. One is, yes, they get so vastly intelligent that we become at best a little slave race. They dump all human beings into computer games the rest of their life to sort of sit there not being very bothered by things. And some people might like the idea. You build a fantasy rest of your history out for you, go into your brain, forget it ever happened, become the hero of your own story. Obviously that's a pretty, I think from a Jewish perspective, a horrendous scenario in which we become ultimately irrelevant. There's some people who worry about this massive income gap where a few people at the top have billions or trillions and everybody else doesn't. The trouble with that is that at some point when machines are producing everything, then actually it's hard to see why we'd have money at all, or what role any humans would have in it. I guess at some point maybe it could happen, but in principle, you don't need money for goods, you need money for people. If people aren't producing anything, it's hard to see why we'd ever need money or where wealth would go. But okay, all these things are possible. But he says the other answer they give is, well, it will integrate in our minds. And he raises some skepticism about that. I personally can't see how the skepticism can be, given that no matter which group of humans are pushing this forward, we're going to want to integrate with this. We're going to need to integrate with it. We'll want to because it will enhance our lives. Right? We'll want to because a big part of where we're going to put technology will be into our bodies. One reason for that would just be medical. We would love to have detectors sitting up and down our body noticing if something goes wrong. We'd love to be able to improve our own processing speed. We'd love to have the memory of and knowledge of the whole of Wikipedia downloaded into our brain. We don't know how to do this stuff, but the drive in the early phases, the economic drive to do it is going to be absolutely staggeringly massive. Now, there is a massive danger that this can then produce a wealthy elite who are just so far ahead of the rest of humanity. That could be a serious issue. But that at some point we're going to want this stuff inside us and we're going to make it happen. I don't personally have much doubt over, and I don't think there's any good reason to doubt it. Look, we're going to want to be happy people, right? That's what we want to be. If we can we do try and alter the chemical state of our brain. Everything from yoga and meditation to dancing to going to a football match, we're always trying to change the mental state of our brain. We'll get better at doing this, and that will involve rewiring of the brain. So we are definitely going to integrate this stuff inside us. We're going to want to have intelligent blood cells that know how to spot a new virus, quickly go to some database and work out how to kill it. Now, where does Judaism say it? What does it say about all this stuff? So I'm not disagreeing with all those who say we need think tanks working on this and we need brilliant brains now while the brains are still able to say something about it, to see if we can come up with answers as to, just like a Geneva Convention, all the great militaries, while still having an arms race, sat together and said, okay, here's what war will and won't do. Can America and China, can everyone sit together and say, here's what AI must be able to do, here's what it mustn't be able to do? That would be amazing. But I think one way or the other, the issue of making humans redundant, this is the machines far outstripping us, are going to happen. But I think it's something very powerful. If it does get inside us and we become part of this growing system, there is a potentially incredible outcome here. And this is something I really believe in. I'm going to talk for a Jewish idea for a moment here, or at least an idea I've learned from Jewish sources. Every single Rosh Hashanah, every beginning of the Jewish New Year, we have a prayer that the whole world should become one. In Hebrew, it's the whole of mankind with the awe of God will become one to do God's will. This is the idea. I think the mystical roots of the idea go back to the Garden of Eden. It's a very interesting thing. I remember reading it in a book many years ago. That the word Eden in Hebrew is a word for time. You see this in the book of Ecclesiastes. In the Hebrew, is Sheidan Lehaya, those who, in the beginning of the 4th chapter, where it says those who've not yet been born, it's an Eden word. Even in the biblical text itself, and in modern Hebrew, Odenu, Adayan, these are words of time. Eden words of time. So you've got a garden of time, which means that even the most literal reading of the book of Genesis, we're talking about something that's not in space and time. It encompasses all of space and time from a different perspective. And in it, Adam, in Hebrew, means not just an individual called Adam, but the whole of humanity. And this soul was a oneness. And somehow the connection we feel with one another is coming because somewhere deep inside we once, or on some other plane of reality, are all somehow interconnected. Now, like that mysticism or not, it forms a vision of a direction of where humanity is going to move to one day. And that although it's so natural to be broken and torn apart, we're ultimately driven to bring it back together again. And this might explain why humans are thinking in the last century and a half, 2 centuries, very big global ideologies, and whether it's communism, whether it's freedom for the whole world. We think globally and collectively, and I think somewhere deep inside we do all share this dream of becoming one. And I think ultimately God's revelation from a Jewish perspective can't really happen in our current state of consciousness. Our brains are a bit too small to absorb godliness, meaning, purpose. We've got snippets and ideas, but we don't have a full Garden of Eden picture. The way Maimonides puts it, the world will be Mola Aretz Deus Hashem, the verse in the prophets of the world will be full of the knowledge of God. Between the prophets and the rabbis there, that is that kind of level of cognition, of being able to grasp the whole of reality. This is something we can't do. But think about if we gained nothing from artificial intelligence except the ability to think together. I just want to say what I think this is like. And one way to think about it is to realize that, look at an ant versus a human, right? I haven't done the maths of how many cells there are in an ant and how many are in a human, or what's the sort of ratio in size, but it's, I don't know, a few tens of thousands of times, or millions, not millions probably. It wouldn't take millions of ants to fill a human, but whatever it is, thousands and thousands. So in terms of cellular material, the quantitative gap between an ant and a human is smaller than being able to put billions or even a few million humans together. Now, let's think about this. So you take cells, the amount of an ant, and you put together, and you've got a whole colony of more cells in an ant colony maybe than a human being, but those little things working together they can build a nice mound with they can't do anything like what a human can do, certainly not a group of humans. And yet now imagine you put all those humans together. What would happen if we could put all our minds and brains together? And the gap between humans together, almost producing a super conscious mind that we share. Wow, I mean, the gap between that and us is probably vastly more significant than the gap between us and an ant right now. So that could be incredible. I want to tell you, this is a personal thought. I'm not claiming I've read this, certainly no Jewish source said explicitly to me, but you start to think, we talk about a world to come. I'll give you an example. There's a great debate in Jewish thinkers going back all the way as to whether the world to come does have a body, doesn't have a body, is it disembodied soul state, or is it, how we all related and connected to each other. And this could really create a vision where we have a vessel to be like a super soul state, where, you know, we kind of have bodies, we have to have it, but it's totally beyond the body, and where everyone who's ever lived could somehow be brought back into it. We get this supercognition that somehow can connect people across. I don't know what. I'm not saying I've got the whole picture and answers here, but I think it could be immensely exciting. Now, we do read that on the journey to the world to come in the prophetic texts and so on, there can be some horrific collateral. We do know the notion that not everyone gets a place in that world, and we could easily see why and how. Many humans could never sustain themselves in a shared conscious state. You need to be an immensely giving person, caring person, willing to encounter a truth you might not want to be true, not afraid to share whatever's happened in our lives or what we've thought and done with others, etc. And so it may involve some weeding out. There may become a choice where people are going to sit inside computer games the rest of their life and virtual reality will actually deal with a deep shared consciousness. But what I'm saying about all this is yes, we need ethics committees working. Maybe we need committees thinking about how we can do this ethically and well. But if we have a sense of where we want to go and a sense of what we could achieve with this in the positive, that could be something inspiring, and that might be better than trying to say, guys, stop. I know you got an arms race, please stop. No one's going to do that. But what happens if we can look at a vision like this? Then we have a very interesting conversation. Then we have something really, really that could be very exciting. Anyway, I hope that's something for you to ponder, enjoy. Feel free to put in your comments below and all your thoughts on it. And of course, like, share, and subscribe. Thank you so much.